Welcome back, Focus Learners. I am incredibly excited to have you here today for another explainer. We are tackling a massive, persistent hurdle in the B2B SaaS world, shifting our mindset and honestly our data from tracking mere vanity metrics to tracking actual bottom-line revenue. If you've ever felt like you're just throwing money into a black hole with your ad spend, well, this explainer is going to fundamentally change how you operate.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the vanity metric trap, how offline tracking actually works, setting up the HubSpot sync, the difference between primary and secondary actions, and finally, fixing common setup pitfalls. So we're covering both the theoretical why and the technical how-to of this incredibly powerful integration.
All right, starting with Section 1, the vanity metric trap, moving beyond the form fill.
We really need to ask the absolute most critical question here. What actually happens after the form fill? You see, when you run Google Ads and only track top-of-funnel downloads, Google's smart bidding suffers from what's known as a blind algorithm. It just chases keywords that produce cheap form fills, but it's completely blind to whether those leads actually buy anything. If you aren't answering this post-form fill question, you're basically leaving your ROI up to chance and wasting your ad budget on junk leads.
So how do we fix this? That brings us to Section 2, how offline tracking works, the journey of the data.
We need a mechanism that bridges the gap between that initial browser session, the ad click, and the actual real-world business outcomes that get logged in your HubSpot CRM weeks or even months later. And here is the absolute linchpin of the whole system, the GCLID or Google Click Identifier. Whenever someone clicks your ad, Google appends this really unique string of characters right to your URL. Then, when a user fills out a form, HubSpot captures this hidden GCLID and stores it on the contact record. This little parameter is the crucial bridge that carries your campaign, keyword, and ad group data directly into your CRM.
But here's a super important update. Simply passing the GCLID back and forth, that's now considered a legacy path. The recommended setup for 2026 is called Enhanced Conversions for Leads. This is vastly superior because it uses a secure one-way hash of first-party data, things like email addresses and phone numbers. So even if the GCLID gets lost to cookie blockers or weird mobile redirects, Google can still match that closed-won deal all the way back to the original ad click. It's a real game changer.
Now, notice that number 90. Google allows you to match offline conversions for up to 90 days after the initial ad click. This is a massive advantage. In the B2B SaaS world, sales cycles are rarely overnight, right? It might take 2 months for a lead to move from a demo to a closed-won deal. This 90-day window perfectly accommodates those longer sales cycles, ensuring your campaigns actually get the credit they deserve.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 3, setting up the HubSpot sync, the integration playbook.
Here are the 4 core technical actions you need to take. First, enable auto-tagging in Google Ads. This ensures the GCLIDs actually generated in the first place. Second, connect your Google Ads account directly inside the HubSpot Ads tool. Third, create a lifecycle stage event in HubSpot. This tells the system to fire when a contact becomes an MQL, an SQL, or a full-blown customer. And fourth, click the prompt to update to EC to ensure you're using enhanced conversions. One quick side note here, to push these lifecycle-based conversions, you do actually need HubSpot Marketing Hub Professional or Enterprise or Operations Hub Pro. Just keep that in mind.
This brilliantly illustrates how mapping your HubSpot lifecycle stages directly to Google Ads unlocks an absolute superpower. You don't just tell Google a conversion happened, you tell it the value of that conversion. So an MQL might be worth $50 to the algorithm, an SQL $250, an active opportunity $1,000, and a closed customer passes the actual dynamic deal amount. You are literally training the algorithm with dynamic conversion values as leads move down your funnel.
Moving right along to Section 4, primary versus secondary actions, instructing the algorithm.
Instructing the algorithm properly here is paramount. Misconfiguring this can completely break your optimization. A primary action is what Google's smart bidding actively uses to optimize your campaigns and spend your money. A secondary action, on the other hand, is for your eyes only. It's for observation and reporting, completely ignored by the bidding algorithm. So here is the golden rule. When you first set up your new HubSpot offline conversions, keep them as secondary actions. Watch the data flow for a week or two to ensure absolute accuracy. Only once you truly trust the data, switch them to primary and let the algorithm take the wheel.
Which brings us to Section 5, fixing common setup pitfalls, troubleshooting the integration.
Because technology rarely cooperates perfectly on the first try, here's your troubleshooting checklist.
First, check if the GCLID parameter is missing on the HubSpot contact entirely. This is usually a sign of broken forms or missing tracking codes. Second, and honestly this is a really big one, make sure you connected the specific Google Ads child account CID in HubSpot, not the overarching manager MCC account. A single misstep there will stop the sync cold. Also, watch out for duplicate conversions if you haven't set unique transaction IDs. And finally, ensure you've actually accepted Google's customer data terms in the settings. Otherwise, they will flat out reject your data.
Now, for the advanced users out there dealing with heavy data loads, look at this brilliant insight from the HubSpot Reddit community. They point out that native integrations can sometimes have batch processing delays. If you want to eliminate API sync delays and those annoying he said, she said discrepancies between platforms, you need to take complete ownership of your data pipeline. By bringing in a server-side tagging architecture with Google Tag Manager, APIs, and a service like Stape.io, you can send hash data exactly when the lifecycle stage changes in near real time.
And speaking of APIs, I really need to alert you to an urgent timeline. If you or your developers built a custom API integration for offline conversions before 2024, you need to audit your path immediately. The legacy upload click conversions API request is officially deprecated on June 15, 2026. You absolutely must transition your setup to the new Google Ads Data Manager API Hub before that deadline, or your entire data pipeline goes completely dark.
So, what does this all mean? We arrive at our final question. The data is super clear. Shifting to offline conversion tracking can yield a 20 to 40% improvement in SQL quality for B2B SaaS companies. It drastically reduces junk leads and lowers your overall customer acquisition cost. So, will you continue optimizing for basic clicks and top-of-funnel forms? Or will you take the steps we outlined today to actually train your algorithms to hunt for actual revenue? The choice and the pipeline is yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.